right, everybody, welcome to Of Stone and Clay, episode 79. This is the first solo episode we've done in quite some time. I like to just do them every once in a while, kind of give the people some updates, talk about things I'm going through, matters of the soul, but I also like to do answer questions that the fans have, that the listeners have. So yeah, I'm just going to hop right into it. The first one I want to read is the most general one. My buddy and his wife they live like 4 hours away from me. And we're pretty close, but we just don't see each other very often. But they just asked, "How are you?" So the vague question, "How am I?" Don't want to answer this too flippantly, but I'm pretty darn good, I think. It's funny, last night I went to a wedding reception and somebody asked my friend how he was doing, and he goes, as good as I should be. I like that response because I don't know, there's just so much that goes into how you're doing. You know, it's like, how's your physical? How's your spiritual? How's your mental? How's your work? How's your career aspirations? How's your journey with God? How's your romance? You know, how are your hobbies? How are the things you're passionate about? And so there's always ups and downs. But right now I'm feeling a lot of peace and a lot of hope in my life. And I'll tell you what's been really special. I had a few videos go, you know, call it what you want, call it semi-viral, but got a lot of traction on a few of my videos recently, more than I've ever had in my life, and have just been overwhelmed with the outpouring of love and support from complete strangers, like thousands of comments and messages, and it's really buoyed me up and made me feel like an important person. Not important in kind of a self-aggrandizing way. I just mean important like to myself. I feel important to myself. And that's a good feeling. And then an episode I did, I want to say 4 episodes ago with Rachel Winters, a close friend of mine. One of the last things she said on that episode has really stuck with me. She said, I asked her to give me advice, and I asked her to kind of leave me with a parting thought. And she said some really sweet things, but then she said, you know, what I really want is for you to just hold on to hope, even if it's just for the rest of the night. And I want you to realize how much you're loved, even if it's just for tonight. And even though the sentiment was just for the night, it has really stuck with me. And since that conversation, I've just felt more hopeful, and it felt, I've just felt better about myself and about the prospects of the future. So yeah, that's how I'm doing. Next question says, what are 3 qualities or traits you admire in others and or yourself? This is one that it kind of depends on the season of life, because I think sometimes what I admire in other people is what maybe I'm currently struggling with, you know? I'll start with something I admire about myself. I think in most areas of life, I'm pretty exceptionally patient. Like, you can find me in traffic just chilling. You know, people cutting me off, honking at me. I'm just happy to be there and listen to my music. So, but yeah, patience, I think, has evolved over my life, and I think I'm better at it now than I used to be. But because that kind of comes easy, is kind of a second nature, I guess I probably don't like seek to admire that in others. It's still admirable, but a trait or quality that I really admire in someone else, I admire people that it seems like they just are easily love everyone. And I think I do a decent job of that. At least I hope so. But I don't know, maybe that's one that even if I do it well too, when I see that in others, it's more moving and more impactful than patience, a simple virtue. But yeah, when I see people loving easily and loving intensely and presently, that's just incredibly admirable. When I see two people that are incredibly in love like that, I don't know what else more I could admire, I was hot tubbing the other day with a close friend and his dad, and I'm pretty close with his dad. And we were just talking about life and love and relationships and spiritual matters, and we were talking about his relationship with his wife. And he's like, guys, I'm not just saying this, I'm not like being hyperbolic here, but I literally feel like having the wife that I have, having the relationship that I have, I literally feel like a billionaire. Like, that's how lucky I feel. Like, it would be as if somebody gave me $1 billion. That's how lucky I feel just having my wife. And I was like, well, that's the most admirable thing I could think of, So, long story short, I admire love. How do you balance planning a fulfilling future alone with the desire to be married? That's a tricky one for the sad singles out there. Balancing planning a fulfilling future alone with the desire to be married. That's tough because you can't put your life on hold just because you're single, I think it's easy, especially if you're in a culture where people marry young and marry swiftly. Like, it's easy to think, I'll do this when I get married, or I'll focus on this when I get married, or I'll buy a house when I get married, or I'll quit smoking when I get married, or whatever it is. And I think that's just kind of a delusion. I think you try to become your best self, and that's what makes you a really good option for somebody else, and makes you an amazing potential partner for somebody. But it's tough. Like, for me, there's a lot of things I've probably held off on because I'm not married, and trivial things, but I probably haven't done a great job of domesticating my home, because I'm like, well, dude, I might move in a year or 2 years, or I might get married, and then this bachelor apartment, what's the point of me putting money into it or investing in it, Okay, next question. Something small that makes you happy. This is a really good question, and this is something I think about a lot, because I think, for better or worse, my default setting isn't to just be happy and feel happiness and joy. I think I have to kind of seek it aggressively. And so I'm always kind of on the lookout for happy. I'm kind of on the lookout for what is something small that could bring me joy. I'll tell you something today. I just went to the driving range with a buddy and his wife, and I really like his wife. We're not super, super close, but I feel like we're similar enough and enjoy each other's company enough that we could be really close, especially probably more so once I get married and we can go on double dates and stuff. But it was just us three, which I don't think we've ever done before. And it was just kind of special to get just a little bit closer to her and feel like our friendship was growing. And when I went back to my house, I just remember feeling grateful, feeling like, oh, I feel like our friendship grew today. And just being aware of that moment really made me happy. And I got home and hopped in the shower. I was doing something after, and I just remember being happy in the shower because I was thinking about the growth of a friendship that's important to me. And so I think anytime you can kind of recognize little moments like that, instead of just being like, yeah, like we went golfing, it was cool, it makes it easier to feel joy in your life if you're looking for it more earnestly. What's taking up most of your headspace right now? Ooh, that's I would say that's usually a three-pronged Triton, we'll say. I tend to always be thinking about dating, my dating or lack of dating, we'll say, right? And I'm always going on dates, always attempting to find my person, but it's difficult. And I think there are stages when you're deeply single and you have really no good prospects, nothing really on the horizon. And then there's stages where you're talking to people and you're kind of interested. And then there's stages where you're still healing from broken hearts. And there's stages where you are trying to heal, but you're not doing a very good job. But I'm always in one of those stages. And so those things tend to consume my mind because I don't want to say I'm obsessed with finding my person and falling in love, but like, to me, I think that's the greatest and most important thing I can do in my life, and you could argue it's like having children or raising a family, but it's like you can't do those things without first falling in love and caring deeply about somebody. And so, yeah, I think about that stuff maybe more than I should, but yeah, that consumes my headspace. This podcast has been consuming my headspace, but in a really good way. I've just been so excited about the progress of it and the guests we've been getting and the momentum. It's been, we're about, I think, 11 episodes in with my new producer, Tommy Moore, and this new setup. And I just couldn't be more grateful for the opportunity. And, a lot of people ask me, like, what do I get out of podcasting? How fulfilling is it? How gratifying is it? How, all these things. And it just means so much to me to be able to sit down and really, really attempt to get to know somebody for an hour and a half, for 2 hours. And sometimes they're close friends, and sometimes they're essentially strangers, but I get something new out of each one. And then we try to spread those little messages, in video and clips and, the entire episode, of course, but then to get feedback that something we talked about made somebody feel less alone, that's something that can't leave my headspace when it's happening. So I said three-pronged, but what's another thing? I think a lot about my friends. Like, my friends occupy my headspace a lot because I'm worried about their well-being. I'm worried about worry is maybe not the right word. I'm concerned about their well-being. I'm concerned about the growth and evolution of our friendships. And maybe when I say friendships, I just mean people in general, because that dovetails into relationships with my family, with people I'm doing business with or art with. Because there's a lot of people, especially podcasting, that come into my life swiftly and briefly, but I still really care about those relationships, even if, I won't see them again for 4 years, or, I see them once a year. Those relationships are still really important for me to maintain. What's your zodiac sign? Gemini, next question. If you could give your future child one of your personality traits, what would it be? I would hope that my child, it's fine, there's so much you hope for your child, but I would hope that my children, all can easily, can be silly, can just not take themselves so seriously, not take their lives so seriously, and can easily joke around and be sarcastic and can poke fun at themselves without being deprecating, and can notice and enjoy the simple things in life, the things on the periphery. And you could argue that maybe, I don't know how much that's nature versus nurture, but I'm going to do my best to nurture it. And because, I want my kids to have this incredible mix of confidence and humility. And that's a difficult balance, but I think it is very achievable. What's one quality you have that you hope your future partner doesn't have? Maybe a predilection for procrastinating or neglecting tasks, or let's see, a predisposition to laziness. Laziness is funny because I don't consider myself a lazy person, but I'm attracted to laziness, to leisure. I love TV, I love movies, I love reading, which reading I wouldn't consider lazy, but if left to my own devices, and if I was in a bad place, I would become lazy pretty quickly, because I'm not one of those people that necessarily derives a ton of self-worth from my work. My artistic work, yes, but just working in general, doing things in general, not necessarily. And it can be a good thing and a bad thing. So, but hopefully my spouse procrastinates less than me, neglects certain things less than me, and is less lazy than me. But like I said, I don't really think I'm that lazy, but I for sure can lean lazy if I need to. Is there something you were surprised to learn about yourself while hearing other stories? I assume they mean in other stories, just in podcast interviews. That's a good question. I think these interviews are so fun because you never know what somebody's going to reveal or what somebody's going to want to talk about. And I'm always blown away at how completely different everyone's universe is and everyone's experience. There's, within humanity, there's so many commonalities, that we can focus on. But ultimately, even like look at your siblings, even if you've had the exact same upbringing, like your lives tend to be vastly different. The way you approach things, the way you view things, the way you experience things. And so, and hearing other stories, you learn a lot about yourself because you think, wow, like that's never happened to me and probably never will, but wow, what a reaction to that, or what a perspective on that. Like, here's a good example. And this girl wasn't on the podcast, but she reached out to me after listening to an episode and was moved by something we were talking about. And we got to chatting, and she's in a wheelchair. She was, she got in a snowboarding accident a few years ago and got paralyzed. And I was telling her, I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't know how to really empathize with something that heavy, to be young and to sustain such a life-altering injury. Like, of course it could be worse. There's more heinous experiences that people go through, but I just personally, I don't have anything to compare that to. I haven't even broken a bone, especially as an athlete, like to lose the ability to walk, like that would be so crushing to me. And so I was just trying to express sympathy while explaining that I don't know if I could empathize with that. And she said something so unbelievably mature and hopeful and beautiful. She's like, well, to be honest with you, I don't think my trial is worse than anybody else's. And she's like, my accident, my tragedy, whatever you want to call it, getting paralyzed, it could be just as bad as somebody's heartbreak. And I was like, wow, to even utter those words, that takes a lot of humility and a lot of just faith in your life's purpose and your life's destiny. I couldn't believe she said that so effortlessly, and it was so genuine too. It wasn't just trying to sound brave or sound altruistic and whatever. It was really genuine. So yeah, you hear people say things that you've never even thought about saying. You've never even thought about thinking about. and that stretches you as a human. So that's a lot of fun. Let's see. Thoughts on contentment, unmet longings and unfulfilled desires, and experiencing seasons of contentment and how you deal with that. Or maybe how you deal with being not content, how you find that balance. That's a really good question, really salient. I think it's a constant effort to feel content with life, because you're always looking forward, you're always gazing into the future, and it's so easy to think the next chapter will bring contentment and then you'll be okay. Then life will be everything you ever wanted it to be, once you get to that next chapter. But if you can, if you can find contentment in every chapter of your life, and not even every chapter, but every sub-chapter, every page of your life, like that's what's going to really bring you peace. I feel like peace is a good synonym for contentment, And so I don't know that I'm the best at it. I think there are lots of chapters in life where I am fully discontent, but that's a recipe for unhappiness. So yeah, the whole like having unmet longings, wow, like yeah, you don't think I long to be married and long to be in the arms of somebody who thinks I'm their everything? Like that's, yeah, how can you feel content when you don't have the thing you have, the thing you want the most? I think it's not putting all your contentment in one area. I think it's trying to find contentment in the macro, in life itself, and not in one unmet experience or in one unmet goal or realization. And I'm preaching this as if it's an easy solution, but it's not, Like I said, I think it's a perpetual effort and a perpetual, self-analysis. How content am I in this current situation? And you might be stuck at a job that you hate. It's like, how can you be content with life if you hate your job? It's like, well, I guess maybe it's hard to be content for 8 hours a day, but you can find, reasons to be content in small ways, and you can find silver linings in things that you need to do but you don't enjoy doing. But I would agree, if you're at a job that you despise, yeah, it might be really difficult to feel content. If you're in an unhappy relationship, no way you're going to feel contentment. So I think anything in your life that is causing you that much discontent, you need to find, you need to make an exit plan. So if you're in a job you hate, maybe you need that job, maybe you need that salary, but I think you need to find a way to either learn to enjoy it more, or you need to at least contrive a plan where you can someday get out of it. Same with a bad relationship. Although a bad relationship, you should get out of immediately. Maybe not immediately, depending on a lot of factors, but those are the kinds of things that really tear down your soul. Okay, last question. Somebody said, I'll give a little bit of personal context, but somebody said, the question is, how do you stay strong in the church? So many of my friends, except you, are inactive. So just for some basic jargon explanation, in my church, a lot of people that are no longer attending, no longer participating, no longer consider themselves active members, we'll say. They're kind of colloquially known as inactive or semi-active, which I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. I don't know how pejorative that sounds. Inactive, it sounds kind of like you're an invalid or something. But it's funny because in our religion and our culture, a lot of people that are inactive for a host of different reasons, don't like to talk about their inactivity. It's not like, I feel like, because it's sensitive, and rightfully so, but it's interesting because I feel like in Judaism, Catholicism, like there's a lot of people that are just, they're culturally Catholic, their family's Catholic, so they're Catholic, their parents are Jewish, so they're Jewish. And if they're not practicing anymore, they just kind of say that. They're just like, yeah, I'm Jewish, but I don't really like I'll go to the synagogue on this day or that day on Yom Kippur, but yeah, I don't really do it. But yeah, in our like specific Christian denomination, we tend to say, like, we tend to delineate it more specifically, like you're active, semi-active, or inactive, which is kind of humorous. But yeah, the question, how do you stay strong in the church? So many of my friends except you are inactive. And I think he's pointing at people my age that are single especially tend to drift from their spiritual beliefs. And I think the reason is it is difficult. It is difficult to remain spiritual no matter what. It's difficult to have faith no matter what. And I think people confuse things and say that the church, it's hard to be a member of the church or a church. But I think life is just hard. And for me, the church, going to church, worshiping, communing with God, having faith, these things make my life easier. They don't make it harder. And that's been my experience. And I totally can understand and even empathize with those that feel like religion or spirituality makes their life more difficult. But that just has not been my experience. I feel like I need those things, like I need nutrition, like I need sustenance. And so I have no judgment for those that have walked away and for those that don't feel a connection with those things anymore. But I just do. Like, maybe I'm oversimplifying it. I don't know if whoever asked this wanted a deeper answer as to why I've stayed in my faith, but the really simple, reductive answer is I've had no reason to leave. But you got to find that for yourself, you know, and that's the same with anything. Like, if something isn't bringing you joy anymore, you either need to step aside or you need to ask yourself why and see if you can sort of resuscitate that joy. But anyways, I'm going to wrap this up. I really appreciate these questions. These are really insightful questions and important questions. I certainly don't want to think that I have all the answers, but these are things worth thinking about and worth rethinking about. So anyways, really appreciate you guys. I'm excited for this next episode that's going to be coming out. So please subscribe on my YouTube channel, on Spotify, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, wherever you stream things. And, if you have a moment, if you have just a moment, would love for you to rate or review. But ultimately, if you don't really want to and you just like listening to the show, like listening to the clips when they come up, that also means the world to me. So anyways, thanks guys. This was episode 79 of Stone and Clay. I'm Taylor Church. Goodbye.